Regulation. Reagan Chapter 5. Efficiency. 1 Section 5.3 Demand and supply are given by D equals 12, 2P and S equals 2P. A. Explain consumer surplus as net benefit equals B, E. B. The area under the demand curve measures total benefit B. C. Explain producer surplus as profit equals R, C. D. The area under supply curve measures economic cost C. Quantity. Price. Eco 101H5 Fall 2023 Copyright University of Toronto. Taxes. 2 Supply and demand are given by D equals 12, 2P and S equals 2P. Government introduces AT equals 2 per unit tax. A. Illustrate the initial equilibrium as P0, Q0. B. Compute and tabulate CS, PS, and TS. C. Explain how AT equals 2 gap between PD and PS will affect prices and quantities. Figure 4 to 8. D. Discuss and illustrate how the incidence of a per unit tax depends on relative elasticities. Figure 4 to 9. E. Explain the you lose rule for tax incidence. Quantity. Price. Eco 101H5 Fall 2023 Copyright University of Toronto. Subsidies. 3 Supply and demand are given by D equals 12, 2P and S equals 2P. Government introduces AS equals 2 per unit subsidy. A. Illustrate the initial equilibrium as P0, Q0. B. Compute CS, PS, and TS. C. Explain how AS equals 2 gap between PD and PS will affect prices and quantities. D. Compute CS, PS, GS, and TS. E. Discuss and illustrate how the incidence of a per unit subsidy depends on relative elasticities. F. Does you lose apply for subsidies? Quantity. Price. Eco 101H5 Fall 2023 Copyright University of Toronto. The COVID wage subsidy. 4 During the early months of the COVID-19 pandemic, governments introduced a lockdown. Businesses that were deemed to be non-essential were ordered to close their doors. Some employees were able to work at home, but many lost their jobs. In response, the Government of Canada introduced a wage subsidy plan. Consider a simplified version of this plan. Suppose that the pre-pandemic demand for labor was D equals 1,250 W and the supply was S equals 50 W, 200. Employment was L workers per hour employed at a wage of W dollars per hour. Suddenly, the demand for labor declined to D equals 850 W. Without a subsidy, employment would fall to L. The goal of the per unit wage subsidy is to avoid layoffs, L equals L. Even though D equals 850 W. A. Provide a labeled supply and demand diagram to illustrate and quantify L, W, L, and W. B. Calculate the per unit subsidy necessary to achieve L equals L and the cost of this subsidy. Eco 101H5 Fall 2023 Copyright University of Toronto. Price ceilings. 5 prices are determined by D equals 12, 2P and S equals 2P. The government introduces a price ceiling at P equals 1. A. Provide a diagram and calculates to assess the impact on P, Q, CS, PS, and TS. Figure 5 to 3, 5 to 7. P asterisk P equals 1 change. B. Add a perfectly elastic supply curve to your diagram. C. Discuss SR and LR supply curves for Toronto condo market. Figure 5 to 4. D. Canada has a price ceiling for consumer loans at 60%. Is this beneficial? 6 wages are determined by D equals 12, 2W and S equals 2W. Government introduces a minimum wage, price floor, at W equals 5. A. Provide a diagram and calculates to assess the impact on P, Q, CS, PS, and TS. Figure 5 to 2, 5 to 7. B. Add an inelastic demand curve, not perfectly inelastic, to your diagram. Is the E loss smaller? C. Does worker surplus increase when a minimum wage is increased? Explain why some workers win, some workers lose. Eco 101H5 Fall 2023 Copyright University of Toronto. Quotas. 7 prices are determined by D equals 12, 2P and S equals 2P. Government introduces a production quota restricting supply to S equals 4. A. Provide a diagram and calculates to assess the impact on P, Q, CS, PS, and TS. Figure 5 to 8. B. How do these impacts depend on the elasticity of supply and demand? See what would happen if the government required S equals 8. OPEC plus production quotas. 8. The COVID-19 pandemic led to a worldwide reduction in the demand for crude oil in the spring of 2020. After all, no one was flying, cruising or even driving. Producers, who had for many years restricted supply through a cartel called OPEC plus, were faced with falling prices. Suppose that the pre-pandemic demand for crude oil was D0 equals 2,420 p, supply was S equals 20 p and a production quota was established at Q0 equals 800. Suppose that demand fell to D1 equals 1,820 p. Use a supply and demand diagram to illustrate the pre-pandemic market showing the price P0 equals ___ with a production quota established at Q0 equals 800. Calculate producer surplus PS0 equals ____. B. Use the same diagram to illustrate the demand shift calculating price P1 equals ____ assuming that the Q0 equals 800 quota is maintained. Calculate PS1 equals ____. C. Should they reduce the quota so that price is kept at the non-pandemic level P equals P0 even though demand has declined? Calculate the level for the quota to achieve this goal. Q2 equals ____. Calculate PS2 equals ____. D. Would quota equals 600 maximize PS when D equals 1820 p? Eco 101H5 Fall 2023 Copyright University of Toronto. Tutorial questions. 1. Demand is D equals 40 p and supply S equals P. Calculate consumer surplus when a price ceiling is introduced at P equals 10. Provide a supply and demand diagram to illustrate this calculation. Illustrate the efficiency loss. Explain how the size of the efficiency loss will depend on the price elasticity of supply. 2. Wages and employment are determined by supply S equals 0.5 W, 20 and demand D equals 280, 0.5 W. Next month the government will introduce a minimum wage of $400. Calculate and illustrate the efficiency loss. Explain how the size of the efficiency loss will depend on the wage elasticity of labor demand. Eco 101H5 Fall 2023 Copyright University of Toronto. 3. Prices are determined by demand D equals 140, 0.5 p and supply S equals 0.5 p, 20. Next month a tax of 20 per unit will be introduced. Calculate and illustrate the efficiency loss. Explain how the incidence of this tax will depend on the elasticities of supply and demand. 4. A commodity has a price ceiling at $20. Supply and demand are D equals 100, P and S equals P. Calculate and illustrate the efficiency gain that could be realized if this price ceiling was eliminated. Explain how the efficiency gain will depend on the price elasticity of supply. Eco 101H5 Fall 2023 Copyright University of Toronto. Review questions. 1. The incidence of a per unit subsidy is least favorable for buyers when supply is ____ and demand is ____. A. Elastic, elastic. B. Elastic, inelastic. C. Inelastic, elastic. D. Inelastic, inelastic. 2. The imposition of an excise tax usually causes the price paid by consumers to ____, while the price received by sellers ____. A. Rise, rises. B. Fall, falls. C. Rise, falls. D. Fall, rises. 3. Consumers will bear a larger burden of an excise tax if A. Both demand and supply are relatively elastic. B. Demand is relatively inelastic, and supply is relatively elastic. C. Both demand and supply are relatively inelastic. D. Demand is relatively elastic, and supply is relatively inelastic. 4. Producers will bear a larger burden of a sales tax if A. Demand is relatively inelastic, and supply is relatively elastic. B. Demand is relatively elastic, and supply is relatively inelastic. C. Both demand and supply are relatively inelastic. D. Both demand and supply are relatively elastic. 5. The revenues associated with a per unit tax will be the biggest when A. Both supply and demand are highly elastic. B. Supply is highly inelastic, and demand is highly elastic. C. Supply is highly elastic, and demand is highly inelastic. D. Both supply and demand are highly inelastic. 6. Suppose the market supply curve for some good is upward sloping. If the imposition of an excise tax causes no change in the equilibrium quantity sold in the market, the goods demand curve must be underscore, meaning that the burden of the tax has fallen completely on the underscore. A. Vertical, consumers. B. Vertical, firms. C. Horizontal, firms. D. Horizontal, consumers. 7. In the short run, the supply of rental accommodations tends to be A. Infinitely price elastic. B. Very price elastic. C. Very or completely price inelastic. D. Irrelevant to the housing market price. Eco 101H5 Fall 2023 Copyright University of Toronto. 8. The shortage of housing that exists in the presence of binding rent controls is smaller. A. The lower is the elasticity of supply of housing. B. The more elastic is the long-run supply of housing. C. The higher is the elasticity of demand for housing. D. The lower is the elasticity of demand for housing. 9. When the long-run supply of housing is highly elastic, the imposition of rent controls will lead to A. No significant change in the housing shortage over time. B. A reduction in the housing shortage over time. C. A worsening of the housing shortage over time. D. Only a temporary housing shortage. 10. Who are likely to be the biggest beneficiaries of rent controls? A. Landlords. B. Construction companies. C. Prospective tenants. D. Current tenants. 11. A binding price floor is A maximum price, above equilibrium, which price is not allowed to exceed. B. Maximum price, below equilibrium, which price is not allowed to exceed. C. Minimum price, below equilibrium, which price is not allowed to fall below. D. Minimum price, above equilibrium, which price is not allowed to fall below. 12. Suppose the government decides to eliminate a binding price ceiling that it had previously imposed on a particular good. It can be expected that A. Price falls, quantity demanded increases and quantity supplied decreases. B. Price falls, quantity demanded decreases and quantity supplied increases. C. Price rises, quantity demanded decreases and quantity supplied increases. D. Price rises, quantity demanded increases and quantity supplied decreases. 13. Suppose the government decides to eliminate a binding price floor that it had previously imposed on a particular good. It can be expected that A. Price falls, quantity demanded increases and quantity supplied decreases. B. Price falls, quantity demanded decreases and quantity supplied increases. C. Price rises, quantity demanded decreases and quantity supplied increases. D. Price rises, quantity demanded increases and quantity supplied decreases. 14. In a competitive market, a legal price ceiling set above the free market equilibrium price will result in A. Quantity supplied exceeding quantity demanded and thus a surplus in the market. B. Quantity demanded exceeding quantity supplied and thus a shortage in the market. C. Increased profits to the firms in the industry. D. A continuation of the free market equilibrium price and quantity. 15. Suppose that the free market equilibrium price of natural gas would be $2 per unit, but to protect consumers the government has fixed the price at $1.50. At this ceiling price the quantity will be greater than the quantity resulting in A of natural gas. A. Demanded, supplied, shortage. B. Supplied, demanded, surplus. C. Demanded, supplied, surplus. Eco 101H5 Fall 2023 Copyright University of Toronto. D. Supplied, demanded, shortage. 16. The shortages associated with the binding price ceiling will be the smallest when A. Supply is highly inelastic, and demand is highly elastic. B. Both supply and demand are highly elastic. C. Supply is highly elastic, and demand is highly inelastic. D. Both supply and demand are highly inelastic. 17. If the equilibrium price for some product is $1,000, a price ceiling of $800 will result in A. Surpluses of the good. B. Shortages of the good. C. The same effects as a price floor of $1,200. D. No effects because the price ceiling is not binding at that price. 18. Concert promoters often set ticket prices below what they expect the market clearing price to be. They are effectively imposing A and the result is often at a considerably higher price. A. Price ceiling, ticket scalping. B. Price floor, ticket scalping. C. Price floor, a shortage. D. Price ceiling, a surplus. 19. Suppose a binding output quota is imposed in a previously competitive market with free market equilibrium price and quantity. The result is A. Higher price and higher quantity exchanged. B. Higher price and lower quantity exchanged. C. Lower price and higher quantity exchanged. D. Lower price and lower quantity exchanged. 20. Eliminating a price ceiling might make consumer surplus increase, but only if A. Demand is very elastic. B. Demand is very inelastic. C. Supply is very inelastic. D. Supply is very elastic. 21. The introduction of a quota on a non-imported good will always A. Decrease producer surplus. B. Decrease consumer surplus. C. Increase consumer surplus. D. Increase producer surplus. 22. Decreases in the minimum wage might increase employee surplus if A. Demand is elastic. B. Demand is inelastic. C. Supply is elastic. D. Supply is inelastic. Eco 101H5 Fall 2023 Copyright University of Toronto. 24. Grape pickers have labor supply given by S equals 20 W, 80. Vineyards who employ these workers have labor demand given by D equals 240, 20 W. The demand for wine is given by D equals 4,800, 200 P. The supply of wine depends on the wage paid to grape pickers. S equals 200 P, 400 W. A. Provide diagrams showing labor supply and demand for grape pickers, left diagram, and the supply and demand for wine, right diagram, that illustrate and quantify equilibrium wages, employment, the price, and quantity of wine. B. Next month the government plans to introduce a payroll tax of $4 per hour. Use your diagrams from Part A to illustrate and quantify how this change will affect wages, employment, the price, and quantity of wine. C. The government will collect a total of dollars from this tax. Eco 101H5 Fall 2023 Copyright University of Toronto. 25. Equilibrium prices for wheat are determined by demand A equals 200, 2 pot and supply SA equals 2 pot, 40. Prices for corn are determined by DB equals 240, 2 PB and supply SV equals 2 PB, pot, 20. A. Provide labeled diagrams and supporting calculations to illustrate equilibrium prices and quantities in both markets. B. Use the same diagrams to illustrate how prices and quantities would be affected by the introduction of a tax $40 per unit of wheat. Show your work. Good 1, good 2. A. Changes to the price for corn will be largest when the supply curve for wheat is elastic/inelastic, circle 1, B. Demand curve for wheat is elastic/inelastic, circle 1, and the demand curve for corn is elastic/inelastic, circle 1. B. Tax revenues are equal to dollars. Eco 101H5 Fall 2023 Copyright University of Toronto. 26. With a $3 per unit subsidy on grape jam. Price of grape jam demand supply. A. Consumers would pay a price of dollars. Equals 1. B. Producers of grape jam would receive a price of dollars. Equals 4. C. The cost to government is dollars. 3 times 1,100. Eco 101H5 Fall 2023 Copyright University of Toronto. 27. Consider a market where demand is D equals 450, 10p and supply is S equals 10p, 50. A $20 per unit tax will yield government tax revenues equal to B. A quota restricting quantity supply to 100 units will create an efficiency loss equal to C. A price ceiling at $15 will yield consumer surplus equal to D. A price ceiling at $15 will yield producer surplus equal to 4,550, 100, 150, 200, 250, 300, 350, 400. Eco 101H5 Fall 2023 Copyright University of Toronto. 28. Supply and demand for economics textbooks at UTM are given by D equals 2,500. 10p and S equals 10p. 500. A wealthy old man from Oakville once took economics at UTM. He would like to help the students who are currently in Eco 100 and offers to Provide a per unit subsidy to the bookstore. His goal is to reduce the price paid by students to $100. A. Provide a supply and demand diagram that illustrates and quantifies how the equilibrium price would be affected by this subsidy. B. He's ready to pay. How big a check will he need to write? Eco 101H5 Fall 2023 Copyright University of Toronto. 29 Demand and supply for labor in the Mississauga market are given by D equals 160. 4W and S equals 4W. There is currently a tax of $20 per hour is used to finance an employment training plan called the ETP. A persistent shortfall of tax revenues for funding the ETP has prompted a government analyst to propose that this payroll tax should be increased to $30 per hour. A. Provide a labeled diagram and supplementary calculations to assess the impact of this tax increase on workers, employers and government revenue. B. Before the tax increase, governments earned revenues of with a tax of $30 per hour. Government tax revenue is equal to Eco 101H5 Fall 2023 Copyright University of Toronto. 30. The price of wheat PW is determined by supply SW equals 2 PW, 20 and demand DW equals 100, 2 PW. Next month the Wheat Marketing Board will introduce a price floor at PW equals 40 in the wheat market. The price of corn PC is also determined by supply SC equals 2 PC, 2 PW and demand DC equals 240, 2 PC. A. Provide a supply and demand diagram to illustrate and quantify the market for wheat. Show how the price floor will affect the prices and quantities in the wheat market. B. The efficiency loss in the wheat market caused by this floor will be equal to C. Provide a supply and demand diagram to illustrate and quantify the market for corn. Show how a price floor in the wheat market will affect prices and quantities in the corn market. Eco 101H5 Fall 2023 Copyright University of Toronto. 31. Suppose that demand and supply for residence housing are given by D equals 240, 2P and S equals 2P, where P is the price paid for day. The university currently maintains a price ceiling for these rents at a price of $50 per day. Recently, Governing Council has decided to eliminate the price ceiling. To ensure that rents do not rise, they will pay the residence management group a per unit subsidy. The amount of the subsidy will be chosen to ensure that daily rents stay at $50. A. Provide a labeled supply and demand diagram to illustrate the impact of this policy change for consumer surplus, tenants, producer surplus, landlords, and government surplus. B. The amount of the subsidy will be equal to per day. Eco 101H5 Fall 2023 Copyright University of Toronto. 32. The number of students who attend an orientation event depends on the admission price and is given by the demand curve D equals 300. 4P. Event organizers behave based on the supply curve S equals 60 plus 2P. While they originally planned to sell as many tickets as the market would bear, the fire codes mean that there is a quota where no more than 100 people can attend. A. Provide calculations to assess how this quota has affected consumer and producer surplus in this market. B. Will introducing a quota always increase producer surplus? Illustrate how this depends on elasticities. 33. Demand for grape pickers at Canadian grape farms is given by D equals 2,500. 10W. Grape pickers have labor supply given by S equals 10W. 500. A minimum wage, currently at $170, will be increased to $200 next month. A. Provide a labeled supply and demand diagram that illustrates and quantifies how this change would affect the well-being, surplus, of Canadian farmers and grape pickers. B. Provide a second supply and demand diagram that shows the market for Canadian wine. Why might drinkers oppose this increase in the minimum wage? Eco 101H5 Fall 2023 Copyright University of Toronto. 34. Quantity supplied and quantity demanded for frozen turkeys in Brampton are given by D equals 120. 2P and S equals 2P. 40. The government imposes a price ceiling at $30. This is to ensure that no one living in Brampton has to pay more than $30 for a frozen turkey. A. Provide calculations to assess how the introduction of the ceiling has affected consumer, producer, and total surplus in the economy. Provide a fully labeled diagram. B. Will introducing a price ceiling always increase consumer surplus? Illustrate how this depends on elasticities. Eco 101H5 Fall 2023 Copyright University of Toronto. 35 Supply and demand curves for limousine rentals in Mississauga are given by D equals 200. 2P and S equals 3P plus 50 where P is the price per hour. Beginning in January, the Mississauga City Council plans to impose a price floor is established at $80. A. Provide a labeled diagram showing how the market responds to this floor. Calculate the change producer and consumer surplus associated with the price floor. B. Does producer surplus always increase when a price floor is introduced? Illustrate how this depends on elasticities. Eco 101H5 Fall 2023 Copyright University of Toronto. 36 Equilibrium prices are and quantities are determined by D1 equals 1100 P1 and S1 equals 200 P1 200 in the market for good 1. And by D2 equals 400 plus 200 P1, 200 P2 and S2 equals 200 P2 in the market for good 2. A. Provide a diagram showing the equilibrium price and quantity in the market for good 1 and a second diagram showing the equilibrium price and quantity in the market for good 2. B. Next month the government will introduce AT equals 3 per unit tax in the market for good 1, not good 2. Update your diagrams to show and quantify how prices and quantities will be affected in both markets.